The enemy of a good plan is the dream of a perfect plan. If the mind is to emerge unscathed from this relentless struggle with the unforeseen, two qualities are indispensable. First, an intellect that, even in the darkest hour, retains some glimmerings of the inner light which leads to truth, and second, the courage to follow this faint light wherever it may lead. War is nothing but a continuation of politics with the admixture of other means. Everything in war is very simple, but the simplest thing is difficult. Although our intellect always longs for clarity and certainty, our nature often finds uncertainty fascinating. The conqueror is always a lover of peace. He would prefer to take over our country unopposed. No one starts a war, or rather, no one in his sense ought to do so without first being clear in his mind what he intends to achieve by the war and how he intends to conduct it. There are cases in which the greatest daring is the greatest wisdom. There are very few men, and they are the exceptions, who are able to think and feel beyond the present moment. To achieve victory we must mass our forces at the hub of all power and movement, the enemy's center of gravity. Our knowledge of circumstances has increased, but our uncertainty, instead of having diminished, has only increased. The reason of this is, that we do not gain all our experience at once, but by degrees, so our determinations continue to be assailed incessantly by fresh experience, and the mind, if we may use the expression, must always be under arms. We repeat again, strength of character does not consist solely in having powerful feelings, but in maintaining one's balance in spite of them. Even with the violence of emotion, judgment and principle must still function like a ship's compass, which records the slightest variations however rough the sea. If the leader is filled with high ambition, and if he pursues his aims with audacity and strength of will, he will reach them in spite of all obstacles. Boldness governed by superior intellect is the mark of a hero. All war presupposes human weakness and seeks to exploit it. War is such a dangerous business that mistakes that come from kindness are the very worst. If we read history with an open mind, we cannot fail to conclude that, among all the military virtues, the energetic conduct of war has always contributed most to glory and success. War is merely the continuation of politics by other means. As man under pressure tends to give in to physical and intellectual weakness, only great strength of will can lead to the objective. The backbone of surprise is fusing speed with secrecy. Anyone who falls into the habit of thinking and expecting the best of his subordinates at all times is, for that reason alone, unsuited to command an army. The side that feels the lesser urge for peace will naturally get the better bargain. Pursue one great decisive aim with force and determination. History had no lessons or rules to offer the student, it could only broaden his understanding and strengthen his critical judgment. To introduce into the philosophy of war itself a principle of moderation would be an absurdity. Great things alone can make a great mind, and petty things will make a petty mind unless a man rejects them as completely alien. A strong character is one that will not be unbalanced by the most powerful emotions. A friendly combat is an expression of hostile feelings. But in the large-scale combat that we call war, hostile feelings often have become merely hostile intentions. At any rate, there are usually no hostile feelings between individuals. Yet such emotions can never be completely absent from war. Modern wars are seldom fought without hatred between nations. This serves as a more or less substitute for the hatred between individuals. Even when there is no natural hatred and no animosity to start with, The fighting itself will stir up hostile feelings. Violence committed on superior orders will stir up the desire for revenge and retaliation against the perpetrator rather than against the powers that ordered the action. It is only human, or animal, if you like, but it is a fact. The aggressor is always peace-loving, as Bonaparte always claimed to be. He would prefer to take over our country unopposed. Of all the passions that inspire man in a battle, none, we have to admit, is so powerful and so constant as the longing for honor and renown. Modern wars are seldom fought without hatred between nations. This serves more or less as a substitute for hatred between individuals. Casualty reports on either side are never accurate, seldom truthful, and in most cases deliberately falsified. But everything takes a different shape when we pass from abstractions to reality. In the former, everything must be subject to optimism, and we must imagine the one side as well as the other striving after perfection and even attaining it. Will this ever take place in reality? An intellectual instinct which extracts the essence from the phenomena of life, as a bee sucks honey from a flower. In addition to study and reflections, life itself serves as a source. Principles and rules are intended to provide a thinking man with a frame of reference. Thus it has come about that our theoretical and critical literature, instead of giving plain, straightforward arguments in which the author at least always knows what he is saying and the reader what he is reading, is crammed with jargon, ending at obscure crossroads where the author loses its readers. Sometimes these books are even worse, they are just hollow shells. The author himself no longer knows just what he is thinking and soothes himself with obscure ideas which would not satisfy him if expressed in plain speech. The talent of the strategist is to identify the decisive point and to concentrate everything on it, removing forces from secondary fronts and ignoring lesser objectives. If, adhering closely to the absolute, we try to avoid all difficulties by a stroke of the pen, and insist with logical strictness that in every case the extreme must be the object, and the utmost effort must be exerted in that direction, such a stroke of the pen would be a mere paper law, not by any means adapted to the real world. Surprise becomes effective when we suddenly face the enemy at one point with far more troops than he expected. This type of numerical superiority is quite distinct from numerical superiority in general. It is the most powerful medium in the art of war. Vanity is content with the appearance alone,